The stars above looked quiet, peaceful. But for Mira, it felt cold. She sat alone on the edge of the observation deck aboard the small Terran research outpost Station 16. She held an old photograph in her hand. It was worn at the corners, bent from years of folding and unfolding. In the picture, two young women stood side by side, smiling under Earth's blue sky. One was Mira, the other was Lyra. Lyra had been more than a friend. She had been Mira's home. But now Lyra was light years away, part of an alien ambassador. Programmed near the Outer Rim, she left 2 years ago, and the silence since then had grown louder with every passing month. Mira sighed. She had written dozens of messages, but always deleted them before sending. What would she say? I miss you. It sounded so small compared to the ache in her chest. Maybe Lyra had moved on. Maybe she had found something better. Mira's hand shook slightly as she put the photo back in her jacket pocket. Outside the transparent dome, stars blinked like faraway memories. In the distance, the dark curve of a blue gas giant passed silently by. She looked up at the CUM's beacon. It blinked green, still working, still listening. But for what? That night she sat by the long-range console after her shift. She ran her fingers along the controls. The station was quiet. The hum of the life support systems felt like a heartbeat, a slow, steady rhythm, familiar but lonely. She opened the message screen again. To Lyra, no. Delete. She tried again. I don't know if you still think about Earth. I do, every day. Her hand hovered over the send button. Then slowly she tapped delete again. She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. Is it so hard? She whispered to the emptiness. Just then, a soft beep echoed from the panel. Mira sat up. Another beep. Then a faint, pulsing signal began flashing on the screen. Unknown origin. Unencrypted. Urgent, her heart jumped. A distress signal? She activated the translator. The voice that came through was shaky, high-pitched, definitely alien. We are the Lurari. Please, someone, anyone, help us. They are taking our skies, our land. We cannot run. We are small. Oh, please. Don't let us disappear. Myra froze. It wasn't just a message. It was a cry. She checked the galactic map. The signal came from a distant System 1 Lyra had once mentioned. She remembered Lyra's excitement before she left. The Lurari are peaceful, gentle. So, much to learn from them. This was Lyra's sector. Myra's chest tightened. She didn't know what was happening there. She didn't know if Lyra was alive. But the Lurari were in danger and maybe, just maybe, Lyra was with them. She stood up and ran to the command bay. Commander Bryn, she called. We received a distress call. Outer Rim. From the Lurari. Bren, a calm older officer, looked. Over the data? You verified it? Mira nodded. Yes, it's real. We need to respond. He frowned. That's not our jurisdiction, Mira. We're research, not military. We inform Central and wait. She stepped closer. They're asking for help. Begging. No one else may hear them. He looked at her. Why is this so important to you? Voice shook, but she held steady. Because someone I care about might be there. And even if she's not, they still matter. We're humans. We don't turn away. Bren stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. I'll send the report. But if Central ignores it, he looked at her with meaning. You'd better be ready to make noise. Mira's eyes lit with quiet fire. Then I'll be as loud as Earth. Later that night, Mira sat alone again. But something had changed. She opened the message panel one more time, to Lyra. I heard a voice today. A frightened one. From your side of the stars, just thought of you. I miss you. And I'm coming not just for you, but for them. Because no one should be left in the dark. If you see this, I hope you're safe. I hope you still remember. The sky we used to share. This time, she pressed send. Then she looked out at the stars, again not cold, not distant, but like a promise waiting to be kept. The Deathworlders would come. The silence would end. General Roan stood quietly in the Earth Command Hall, watching the holographic screen glow with the signal from the edge of the galaxy. His sharp eyes traced the messages, repeating Lupin alien voice, soft and trembling. Please, help us. We are small. We are peaceful. They are destroying us. We have no weapons, no escape. It repeated again and again. No name. It's just fear. Just fear. A simple plea for help. He had seen many things in his years-treated debates. Pirate threats, border tensions, but this was different. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about power. It was about being heard. Roan turned away from the screen, his heart heavier than he expected. The message reminded him of someone he hadn't spoken to in years, his daughter. Elia. She had left Earth after a bitter argument. She believed humanity should do more than defend itself. She wanted Earth to protect others, to reach out, to care. Roan had told her it was too dangerous. She left without another word. He often thought about her. He often wanted to write. But pride always stopped his hand. Now, hearing that voice, he felt the same ache again. Maybe Ilya was right, he whispered to himself. Across the room, Commander Lian stepped forward. General, should we ignore it? The signal is not from any known ally. Not our responsibility. Roan didn't answer right away. He stared at the stars beyond the window. He thought of Ilya, of the fire in her voice when she said, "If Earth can help and doesn't, then what are we?" He finally spoke, calm but strong. "No, Earth listens." Lian looked surprised. "Sir, send word to the United Human Fleets," Roan said. "Activate Storm Armada." "But Sir," Lian said quickly, "there are only 4 high-level emergencies. We have no data, no map. Not even species recognition. We have a cry for help," Roan said, turning to face her. "That's enough." Lian hesitated, then nodded. While Earth prepared the Storm Armada, thousands of ships, drones, and meta-units were recalled from quiet sectors. Across colonies and moons, soldiers, scientists, and engineers packed supplies. Most didn't even know that someone needed them. In the quiet of a deep space dock, a woman named Ilya Roan stood near her shuttle. She wore a patch with the Storm Armada symbol, white lightning on a blue circle. She was checking her systems when her console beeped. A message had arrived. From Earth Command. She opened it slowly. "Ilya, you were right. The signal came. We heard it. Storm Armada is launching, and I'm proud, Dad." Her eyes filled with tears. He had heard her. After all this time, he had listened. Not just to her, but to a stranger crying for help. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Thank you." She turned to her crew and shouted, "Prepare for departure." Across the fleet, other commanders did the same. No one asked where they were going. They only knew why. Back at Earth's command, Roan stood at the main screen. Watching the Armada align in Earth's orbit like stars forming a wave, lights danced across the black sky. Lian stood beside him. "Sir, may I ask, why do we go?" "We don't even know who they are." Roan smiled faintly. "Because they asked." He looked up again, this time not with doubt, but with hope. Ilya used to say humans are not the strongest or the fastest, but we feel, we care, we listen when others don't. That's our strength. That's why we're Deathworlders. Not because we destroy, but because we survive and we save. Lian nodded slowly. She understood now. Far beyond Earth, the signal still played, weak and fading. But Earth had answered. The Deathworlders were. Coming not to fight, but to stand beside the small and the afraid. And in a quiet corner of the stars, someone who thought they were forgotten would soon learn what it meant to be heard. Captain Juno stared out the window of the command ship Emberlight. Stars stretched like rivers of diamonds across the dark. The Storm Armada had left Earth 3 days ago. Thousands of ships moved silently in formation, flying toward a small, desperate planet called Ilarisome of the Liarari. But Juno wasn't thinking about the mission. She was thinking about Malik. Malik had been her co-pilot, her closest friend, and something more. He had transferred to a science ship 2 years ago, heading to the Rim for a deep space cultural program. They promised to stay in touch. But over time, messages got fewer, shorter, then nothing. She missed his voice, his laugh, the way he could make her smile even on bad days. She often wanted to write, to ask if he was okay. But she didn't want to seem weak. She didn't want to hear he had moved on. Now, the fleet was heading to the rim, same sector Malik had gone to. She sat down in her chair, his eyes heavy with unsaid feelings. A young cadet walked over holding a datapad. "Captain, new data. Report on incoming signals from alien systems. We're getting a lot of chatter." Juno nodded. "What are they saying?" The cadet hesitated. "Most of them are afraid." Juno looked at him, afraid. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Word is spreading. The Deathworlders are coming. Some aliens think we're bringing war, others think we'll take over. There's panic." Juno sighed. That word again, Deathworlders. Humans hadn't chosen it. Other species. Did Earth was known as a death world because of its storms, predators, diseases, and challenges? To survive there meant being strong, adaptable, and stubborn. Over time, that name became something more. Some aliens used it with respect, others with fear. Stories grew wild. Humans that breathed fire, crushed steel, or turned enemies into dust. But Juno knew better. Humans didn't survive because they were monsters. They survived because they cared. She stood up and walked to the communication hub. "Patch me into the open channel? I want to speak to anyone listening." The cadet blinked. "But Captain, it's public galactic frequency. Every species could hear it." "Good," Juno said. "Let them." A moment later, her voice traveled through the stars. "This is Captain Juno of the Terran vessel Emberlight. Yes, we are Deathworlders. Yes, we come from a world that teaches us to be strong. But we are not what the stories say." She paused. "We don't come with weapons to conquer. We come with hearts that cannot ignore a cry for help. We come because someone asked. That's what it means to be human." In a small outpost on the edge of Alaris, a young Lurari child heard the voice. She sat huddled next to her parents, hiding from machines that had taken over their skies. Her mother whispered, "The humans. They speak with kindness." On another moon, a group of alien traders lowered their shields and shared the message with others. And far away, on a quiet science ship orbiting a ruined moon, Malik leaned closer to the speaker as Juno's voice continued. "We know we are far from perfect, but when someone is in need, we do not hide. Hey, we rise. That is why the Storm Armada moves. Not for glory, not for fear, but for hope." Malik's heart beat faster. He knew that voice, knew that strength. It was Juno. He remembered the way she had believed in others, how she fought not for power but for people. He opened his old message files. Dozens of unsent drafts waited there. Messages he had written to her but never sent. Now he knew it was time. Back aboard Emberlight, Juno returned to her cabin. Her message was out there now, floating between worlds. She didn't know who had heard it, or if it even mattered. She sat down, staring again at the stars. Then her console beeped. Incoming message. From Malakrim science ship Dawnlight. Her heart jumped. Slowly, she opened the message. "Juno, I heard your voice. I always believed in you, but I didn't know how to say it. I miss you. I want to see you again. If you're coming this way, I'll be waiting." Juno stared at the screen, her eyes filling with quiet joy. She smiled. Ellie smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe the galaxy feared humans, but maybe, just maybe, they would learn the truth. That Earth's greatest power wasn't its fire or force, but the storm in its heart that never stopped caring. Annika stood near the open shuttle door, staring at the sky of Alaris. The world was glowing orange and red, not from a sunset, but from the smoke of battle. The machines had attacked again last night, and the Lurari village they had reached was badly damaged. Still, it stood. The Storm Armada had arrived just in time. Around her, human engineers set up medical tents, food stations, and clean water lines. Others worked side by side with the Lurari, calming frightened children and helping lift rubble from broken homes. But Annika felt strangely alone. She held a small communication badge in her hand. It belonged to Kira, her older sister. 2 years ago, Kira had left Earth to join a peace program for alien relations. She had been assigned to the Lurari people. The last time they spoke, Kira had told Annika, "One day you'll see how strong kindness can be." Annika hadn't heard from her since. When she saw the name Alaris in the distress signal, her heart sank. What if Kira had been here all along? What if she was one of the missing? Every step on this soil felt like walking through memory. Annika walked slowly through the Lurari camp. The small, gentle aliens stared up at her with wide, curious eyes. They were pale blue in color, with large golden eyes and long fingers. Most were frightened. A few nodded politely. But one child, no older than 5, reached out and touched her glove. "Are you the humans?" the child whispered. Annika knelt. "Well, yes, we heard your call." "You're not scary," the child said, blinking. Annika smiled. "We're not here to scare anyone. We're here to help." Just then, a new voice called out from the far end of the camp. It was soft, but familiar. "Annika." She froze. The voice was older, worn, but she knew it. She turned there. Standing beneath the broken arch of a shelter was Kira. Her uniform was torn. Her face was tired, but her eyes, they still held the same spark, the same warmth Annika remembered from home. They stared at each other for a moment, like the stars had stopped moving. Then Annika ran. She wrapped her arms around her sister, tears falling without words. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. "I was never far," Kira said, holding her tightly. But it felt like the whole galaxy was. Later that night, the sky was quieter. The machines had pulled back for now. Fires were out. Human lights glowed gently over the valley. Lurard families rested near heaters and shared meals with Earths. Crew Annika sat beside Kira on a hill overlooking the camp. The stars above shimmered like candles in a black ocean. "I sent so many messages," Annika said quietly. "But I never knew if you got them." "I got them," Kira replied. "Every one. I just didn't know what to say back. I wanted to fix things here first. I wanted to have good news before I told you anything." "You didn't need good news," Annika whispered. "You just needed to talk to me." Kira looked down. "I was scared." Annika nodded slowly. "Me too." Then they laughed, soft and real. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. It was healing. Kira turned toward her. The Lurari were alone for so long. When the sky burned, they still believed someone would come, that someone out there would care. Annika smiled. They were right. Kira looked up at the dark, smoky sky. That's what makes humans special. It's not just our strength. It's that we run toward people when they're hurting, even across the stars. Akka said, smiling wider. "What's that?" Kira asked. "Humanity, F?" Asterisk, 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 yeah, Annika said, grinning. "It's a saying we use back on Earth. It means we survive, we fight, we care, even when no one expects us to." Kira laughed. "Sounds about right." Below them, the storm Armada glowed in orbit, shining like a guardian in the night. And in the valley, humans and Lurari shared stories, blankets, and gentle music from a quiet radio. Annika looked at her sister. "Promise me something." "Don't." "Go silent again." Kira nodded. "I won't." The two of them leaned back, side by side, wrapped in the warm light of hope. The machines might return. The war might not be over, but the Lurari were no longer alone. Neither were the sisters. Humanity had answered the call, and the fire in their hearts burned brighter than the smoke in the sky. Malik walked through the dark hallway of the science vessel Dawnlight. Outside the windows, the stars looked still, but Malik's heart was not. He had just received a reply from Juno, short but warm. "I'm glad you wrote. I've missed you too. Maybe soon. We'll talk." It wasn't everything, but it was something. He stared at the message on his handheld again and again. He wanted to say more, but didn't know how. Too much time had passed, too many words left unsaid. Juno had always believed in helping others. That was what drew Malik to her in the first place. Her strength wasn't just in command, but in caring. He'd always admired that, and maybe he had feared it too, because sometimes when people care deeply, they can be hurt deeply too. Now, with the Storm Armada here and the machines still attacking, Malik had a new mission. One that brought him closer to the pain Juno had always felt, the pain of wanting to help, but not knowing how. He entered the research lab, where data on the enemy was displayed across several screens. Charts, symbols, and long codes lit up the walls. The machines had no names, no voices, no demands. They came, harvested everything living, and moved on. They didn't speak. They didn't stop. Malik turned to his assistant, a young technician named Freya. "Any new discoveries?" he asked. She shook her head. "They're unlike anything we've ever faced. They don't communicate. They don't negotiate. They just erase." Malik nodded slowly. "Then we'll learn their silence," he said. "We'll find a way." Later that day, Malik stood in a quiet observation bay. Below him, he could see the surface of Alaris, part of it glowing with human lights, and part still dark under machine control. He thought about all the people down there. The Lirari, Juno, maybe even the sister she had once mentioned, Annika, and he thought again about the silence. Not just from the machines, but from himself. He had been silent with Juno for too long, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much and was afraid of messing things up. Now, watching the destruction unfold on a peaceful world, Malik understood something important. Not saying anything can hurt more than saying the wrong thing. He turned and walked to the comms center. "Open a line to the Emberlight," he said. "Message for Captain Juno." A few minutes later, his message was ready. He spoke simply, from the heart. "Juno, I've been quiet for too long. I told myself it was because I didn't know what to say, but the truth is, I didn't want to lose what we had. Now, I realize silence takes more from us than distance ever could. You were always brave. I want to be brave too. Let's talk. Soon, Malik." He sent it. Then he looked at the data one more time. There, buried deep in the machine code, he spotted something new, a repeating pattern. Not random, not noise, a memory fragment. Freya ran a quick scan. Her eyes widened. "Sir, these machines aren't just harvesting. They're following an old program, a survival script. They were made during an ancient war, but their creators are long gone." "They're not evil," Malik whispered. "They're lost. Still running orders from a war that ended thousands of years ago." Freya nodded. "They don't know peace. They never learned how to stop." Malik leaned closer to the console. "But we do. We're human. We adapt. We listen." He tapped into the signal lines. "What are you doing?" Freya asked. "Sending them a new code," Malik said. "Not to fight, but to offer a command they've never heard before. Rest." On the surface of Alaris, as the sky began to darken again, with the rising hum of enemy drones, something unexpected happened. The machines slowed. Then they stopped. One by one, they dropped from the sky, gently, silently, as if it'd finally been told it was okay to sleep. Juno, watching from the command center, gasped. "What just happened?" her officer asked. She looked at the screen, saw the source, Dawnlight, and one name, Malik, back on the science vessel. Malik watched the enemy go still. He exhaled slowly. For the first time in a long time, he felt close. Not just to Juno, but to himself. Because sometimes HFY didn't mean fighting the hardest. Sometimes it meant feeling the deepest, and never giving up on people living when you don't know how to begin again. Hope had a voice. And finally, Malik had chosen to speak. Ilya stood on the medical ship Solace, watching the soft blue clouds of Alaris drift past the windows. Down below, the Storm Armada was still helping the Lirari recover human doctors. Builders, teachers, and farmers all working side by side, with the small, gentle aliens. But Ilya's heart felt heavy, her father. General Roan had sent her a short message days ago. It had surprised her. Warm words. Words she had waited years to hear. It said he was proud of her, that he believed in what she stood for. She had read that message over and over, but she hadn't replied. She didn't know how. Their last words had been angry. He told her not to go, that she was chasing dreams. Humans should protect themselves first. She had left Earth with tears in her eyes, and silence between them. Now, the Storm Armada had proved something. Humanity could care for others without losing itself. They didn't need to fight for everything. They could fight for someone else. They could build. They could protect. They could hope. Ilya walked through the hallway of the ship. Passing patients being treated, Lirari children wrapped in warm blankets, elders receiving clean water and soft food. The humans helping them did not look like soldiers. They looked like friends. This was what she had dreamed of. So why did she feel so far from her own family? She stepped into the communication room and looked at the message screen again. Her fingers hovered over the send button. She wanted to tell her father everything, that she missed him, that she was sorry and proud of him too, that she still remembered when he read her space books before bed, that his strength had made her strong. But every time she tried to type, the words felt small. "Why is this so hard?" she whispered. Meanwhile, in Earth Command Hall, General Roan stared at the screen, showing the Storm Armada in orbit. Reports. Came in machines down, villages rebuilt, Lirari rescued. 0 human casualties. The mission was working. Still, kept checking his private message box. No reply from Ilya. He rubbed his face with one hand. "I said I was proud," he muttered. Wasn't that enough? But deep down, he knew it wasn't. He had spent too long believing humans had to fight alone, that helping others would only weaken them. But Ilya had seen the truth earlier than he had. Now, the whole galaxy saw it too. The Deathworlders were not monsters. They were guardians. He thought of her as a little girl, holding a star map in her hand, saying, "One day, we'll help every world that needs it." And now, she was doing exactly that. Back on Solace, Ilya walked outside into the open air of Elaris. For the first time since landing, the Lirar village had changed. Human. Tents mixed with alien homes, children played in safety again. Music drifted from a small campfire where a human played guitar and a Lirari gently tapped a wooden bowl in rhythm. She smiled quietly. Maybe words weren't always needed. Maybe action could speak first. She took a recording device from her pocket. Slowly, carefully, she began to speak. "Dad, I wanted to say thank you. You listened. You believed. That means more than I can ever tell you. I'm sorry I didn't reply sooner. It's not because I don't care. It's because I care so much that I didn't know how to begin. But here's the truth. You were my hero. You still are. We both made mistakes. But today, I saw a Lirari elder smile for the first time since we arrived. A child laugh. A village breathe again. That's the kind of world I always wanted to help build. And now, I think we're building it. Together." She sent it a few hours later. General Roan received the message. He played it once. Then again. Then once more, tears touched his eyes, but he let them fall. Then he opened the recording function and smiled gently. "Ilya, I hear you. And I'm proud every day I see what you've done. You were right before I was. That's the truth. We'll talk more, I promise. Until then, just know, you made me believe again, not just in humanity, but in us." That night, the Storm Armada didn't fire weapons. It didn't raise shields. Instead, it lowered lifeboats filled with food. It brought musicians to perform in the villages. Set up learning stations so Lirari children could write and read again. Some watched from afar and still called the humans dangerous. But those on Elaris knew the truth now. The Deathworlders came not to destroy, but to heal. They brought storms, yes, storms of compassion, storms of hope, storms of heart. Annika stood on the hill above the Lirari village. The stars stretched across the sky, brighter than ever after the storms. Around her, the gentle blue figures of the Lirari moved quietly, rebuilding their homes with human help. In her hand, she held a small device, the communicator she had used to send messages to her sister Kira months ago, before the Storm Armada arrived. Now, Annika was ready to send something new. She pressed a button, and the device hummed softly. "This is Earth and Elaris together. To anyone who hears this signal, we are not alone. When you are in danger, call out. We will listen. We are Deathworlders. We bring storms of hope, not fear, and we answer always." She looked out at the dark horizon. The galaxy was vast, full of silence. But not forever. Somewhere far away, her sister Kira was reading this message. Somewhere Malik was hearing it. Somewhere, Ilya was helping others believe again. And somewhere, General Roan was watching Earth's skies, hoping for the future. Annika's heart ached, but not with loneliness. It was full of something new, hope. Back on Earth, General Roan stood outside under the night sky. The stars looked peaceful, but his thoughts were busy. He thought of his daughter, Leah, and the message she sent. He thought of the storm Armada moving beyond Earth. Not for war, but for aid. He thought of the long years he stayed, silent, afraid. Of loss. Afraid of change. And he knew one thing clearly now. Distance could make people feel alone. But it could never break the ties that truly mattered. He reached for his communicator and began to type a new message. Ilya, I'm here. Listening. Let's find our way back to each other. Together. He sent it, far away on the dawnlight. Malik smiled as he read the message from Juno. The silence between them was breaking. He typed back slowly. Juno, I'm ready to speak, to listen, to be brave, like you said. His heart felt lighter. The first time in a long time, he believed. On Elyris, Kira sat by a quiet fire with Annika. They shared stories of Earth, storms, of family. Annika looked at her sister. It's strange. I felt lost when you were gone. Kira smiled. Me too, but now we're here. Annika nodded. Distance made us silent, but it never stopped us from caring. Kira reached for her hand, and that's what makes us human. Cross. The galaxy. The signal Annika sent began to spread. Other species listened. Some were scared, some were hopeful, but all understood one thing. When Deathworlders answer a call, they come with storms of hope, and the promise that no one is truly alone. Annika closed her eyes and whispered to the stars, maybe this time the silence will end.